Hi everybody. In today's video, we're gonna try and explain how do brushes work in ZBrush. Alright, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press my comma to turn off lightbox. And then, since I really don't like this gray patch I have on around my screen, I'm gonna go over to Preferences, and from here I'm gonna press on Initialize ZBrush. It's going to ask me if I fully want to initialize. I'm going to press yes, and that is going to make my working table bigger. Now for the next thing that I want to change is this fallout gradient I have in the background. Really dislike working with the black and the gray, so I just go over to Document, and I'm going to take this slider over here and just get it back to 0. So this way I have one color all across. Alright, so in order to start sculpting, we need to have a tool on which we can sculpt. Tools are chosen from the tool subpalette. So from here I can click on Tool and choose any of these meshes I have here. For example, let's go with Sphere 3D. Click and drag one, and like I mentioned in the first video, if you haven't watched that, before you start working on the sphere, you need to enter edit mode, and if you want to start sculpting, you need to make it a polymesh 3D. So once you make it a polymesh 3D, now you can come over and start sculpting. Now here's the thing, when you're sculpting, generally, you're going to want to have symmetry working. So instead of having to double down on your work and do one thing over here and then do the same thing over here, or try to approximate the same thing you did here, you can turn on symmetry. Symmetry in ZBrush is easily turned on by just pressing the X button. And once you press it, you're going to notice that wherever I move my cursor, I have this a little dot going on the opposite way. So if I just click here and start drawing something, whatever I draw, it's mirrored on the other side. So I can make some intricate designs over here. Now, I'm going to press Ctrl Z to go back once, or if I want to go back in a more, let's say, controlled way, for example, I'm going to do it one more like this. And then I'm gonna do something like this. If I want to go a few steps back, you can notice over here that I have this slider. This is the undo history. I can just click and just scroll back, and this is all the steps I've did. So here we are back at the beginning. Alright, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna show you how the brushes work in ZBrush. By default, the brush that you work with is the standard brush. Now, this standard brush works or is defined by what kind of a stroke you have selected. By default, the default stroke is set up as dots, and you have something like this. If you change the dots to, let's say, something like freehand, you get a different result. But in all honesty, if you want to see it better, we're going to have a bit more geometry here. For example, right now I have 8,000 polygons, which is a bit on the low side. So I can go over down to my geometry rollout and just press this divide button. Or I can just press Ctrl D. This is one of those shortcuts that you would do well to remember. So Ctrl D will increase the number of geometry you have here. So now we are up to 130,000, which is better. So I'm going to close this. And now when I start sculpting, I get much more detail, and it's better to see what is going to happen. So I'm going to change the stroke now from freehand to color spray. And you're going to notice that I'm getting a different result. I can even try a drag out. And you'll notice that once I click, I can basically choose where to position. When I let go, it stays there. So again, back to dots. So this is the standard brush. It's basically good for doing something like this. It's more organic, tissue looking like effect. Now, this is when I have my Z add selected. This is the result that I get. I get more clay or digital clay added to my 3D mesh. Now, if I press the Alt button, I'm actually going to get the alternative or the Z sub option. So I'm going to press Alt. You're going to notice the minus next to my cursor. And now when I start sculpting, instead of adding clay or digital clay, I'm starting to subtract. And we get something like this. Or if we don't want to press the Alt and just want to use the Z sub by default, now when I press here, I get this effect. And now when I press the Alt, while my Z sub is selected, then I'm starting to add. So as you can see, Alt is pretty much defining the opposite of what you have selected over here. Now, the next thing that I want to tell you is about the smooth brush. Like, for example, all of these ridges that we just did look a bit jaggy. Now, if I want to smooth them, all I have to do is hold down the Shift button and my circles are going to turn into blue color. So I'm going to click, and now when I go over my surface, you can see that everything smoothens out. It's nice and smooth. There's no longer those ridges or hard ridges. Again, I can smooth out everything and make it more doughy. Something like this. There we go. Now, I'm going to press Ctrl Z so I can go back one step. One more. There you go. The smoothness is controlled by this here slider called Z intensity. Now, Z intensity is how strong the effect is going to be on whatever you have selected. For example, notice one thing. Now it's sitting at 25 Z intensity, but once I press Shift to switch over to the smoothing brush, that Z intensity goes up to 100. That means that depending on what I have selected, for example, my Z intensity for the smooth brush is at 100. So if I click this and draw it back to something, let's say something like 20, this means that now the smoothing is only going to happen at 20%. So as you can see, now it's smoothing, but it's much more subtle. It's not breaking up the form that much. There you go. So again, the same effect, but with a much more subtler effect. All right, so this was the standard brush. So how do we change the brushes? Well, you can press over here on the brush and you can choose whatever brush you want here. But in all honesty, this is not the most ideal way of choosing your brushes, or not the fastest one, not the most ideal. I'm not trying to like insult anybody, because I know a lot of very good artists that work this way. They press the brush and then they choose the brush they want from here. For example, now one of the other quite used brushes is clay buildup, this over here. So once you press the clay buildup, you're no longer going to be working with the standard, you're going to go over to clay buildup. Clay buildup works in a bit different manner, where it adds more clay, but it's an amazing brush that works wonders when you're sculpting something like muscles, because it's giving it the texture. And once you start smoothing this, for example like this, it retains that texture and you're starting to get something that resembles muscles. So all in all, the clay buildup is an amazing brush. But how do we go about choosing all of these brushes a bit faster? Well, all you have to do is when you're in your viewport, you can press the B button for brush, and now you just need to know what brush you would like to choose. Let's say I want to use the standard brush. The first letter here is S, so I'm going to press the S, and the standard brush I can see is here, and on top of it here I have the T button. So this means if I want to choose my standard brush, I have to press BST. This chooses the standard brush. If I want to choose the clay buildup, I have to go brush, C for clay, and B for buildup. So BCB will choose your clay buildup. There we go, something like this, and right away you have this. If I go BST, I'm back to my standard brush. BCB, back to clay buildup. Another brush that is one of the brushes that you're gonna use a lot is the Damien standard brush. Now, since I told you the name, we're gonna go B for brushes, D for Damien, and you can see it here, Damien standard. It has an S on top of it. So BDS will choose our Damien standard. Now, Damien standard brush is amazing when you want to clearly define some area. For example, if I click and drag, you're gonna notice that it kind of behaves like you're cutting through the clay with a knife. Something like this. There we go. It's really great for defining your mesh. Just like with the previous brushes, if I press the Alt, instead of carving in, it's going to start to add more on top. But the clay it's going to add is going to be very clearly defined. So more or less, it's going to look like you went over and drew on top of this. There we go. Something like this. And you can choose to mix it up if you want to. For example, if you find something that you want to do, you can first go ahead and, let's say, do something like this. So you go inwards, then you hold down the Alt and add a few more on the sides. Then another one on the other side. You basically get a ridge with two dimples on the side. So if I go ahead and just smooth this, you get more or less something like a ripple effect happening. So it all kind of depends on what you want to do and how you want to do it. But the standard brush, the clay buildup, and the Damien brushes are one of the most used brushes in ZBrush. Let's go over with a few more of the brushes that you're gonna be using in ZBrush. So since we got over the Damien standard, I'm gonna press B and I'm going to press H. So this way I'm going to choose my H polish brush. Now what this brush does, it's basically polishing up or making a surface flat. For example, if I want this to be flatter, just click and drag here. And right away I can see that I have this plateau of flat surface that I can work on. And it's great for a lot of things. Like for example, if I want to get a more hard surface look over here, I can go from the side, go from the top, go from the middle, and I have this ridge over here. I can choose to go from the sides here. There we go. Something from here and on the top. And as you can see, even though I started off with sphere, I'm slowly starting to get some hard edges. There you go, something like this. I can go on the side and clearly define it to be more sharper. But in all honesty, the edges here are not that sharp. But for that, we have another brush that we can use here. We can use the pinch brush. There we go, the pinch. And the way the pinch works is pretty much you click and everything around it, it's doing exactly what the name says. It's pinching the geometry towards that middle part. So you can see we get a lot sharper edge. For example, here we go. Define these sharper edges. There we go. So with the pinch brush and with the H polish, those are two amazing brushes that are really good when you want to get some sharpness to your edges. But there we go. This is not the ideal way of how you would model something that's like hard surface model, but it can do for something like this. There we go. All right. So as you can see, ZBrush is really a fun program. A program in which if you know just the basics, it really doesn't require you to have a lot of knowledge to be able to jump in and start scribbling down something, trying out different ideas, and basically letting your creativity run amok. Because when you start working with ZBrush, you're gonna notice that a lot of the times when you get in front of the computer, you're pretty much not gonna know exactly what you want to do. But once you start doing something or making some doodles, your creativity is going to start up and show you different ideas. You're gonna get to do stuff that you basically never thought about doing, but once you start making it, ideas simply kind of start pouring towards you, and you start sculpting different aliens, different animals, different objects, whatever comes to your mind. Now, I don't want to get this video any longer, as this is again a part of the introduction to ZBrush. In the next videos that I'm going to do for ZBrush, I'm going to try to cover an actual model or something that is not going to be this vague as these models were. I'm going to try to do it to something that's a bit more defined, and I'm going to try to show you how to make those models. So for now, I really hope you guys liked the video and you liked ZBrush. And if you did, then hit that like button, and I would really like to make more about ZBrush depending on how much interest this video gets. And we'll see. If it does pick up on interest, I will try to do more videos and explain how you can use ZBrush to make models for games, but do models that you can use for architectural visualization, and how you would model intricate designs for furniture, or how you would make different kind of lamps and whatnot. So for now, that would be it, and I'll catch you all in the next video.